do have a quorum. We will start with the act of reverence and pledge allegiance to the flag.
You're over there now. I see. We just traded places. Almost.
And the pledge will be led by our student rep, Sarah DeLaws.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Happy New Year, everyone. This is our first business meeting of the year. So I wish you all a happy New Year and welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Cruz, welcome.
Thank you.
We will now, we have several minutes that require approval. We have minutes from December 8th, December 14th, December 17th, and December 21st. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Powell. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of accepting those minutes, please say aye. The ayes have it. Those minutes are accepted. We'll have a brief student presentation from students participating in Americans Promoting Study Abroad, and this relates to Beijing, China. I assume that they're going to give a presentation. They want us to sit in the front row.
Yes.
Yes? So I ask my colleagues to move down to the front row, and then we'll continue on with the rest of our agenda.
This side. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, our superintendent, and guests here this evening. I want to introduce you to last summer's Beijing, as we call them, Beijing 8, plus our two chaperones. These students had the opportunity to go to China. They were in Beijing for 6 weeks. It was the second summer we've been able to do this, being sponsored by the Americans Promoting the Study Abroad. They didn't pay a penny to go on this trip, except if they needed a passport. Of course, they had to get their passport. Some of them, 3 of them, have had the opportunity to go for a second summer because when they were selected the first year, the commitment from APSA to them was that it would be a 2-summer commitment. It would have been 10 of them, but 2 of them graduated last year. Katie Tiedemann is at the university at the United States Air Force Academy, and she's also studying Chinese there. And if you were here last year, you might remember Daniel. Daniel was the young man who ate dog while he was there, the soup. And Daniel, believe it or not, is in China. He's teaching the Chinese how to speak English. And he left in August. He's been there all year. All of these students have a story to tell, and unfortunately, we're very limited in time. And we know that the board has a very aggressive agenda today, as they do always. So we want to I'm going to ask them all to speak a little bit about their experience. And again, I want to take this opportunity to thank the superintendent and the administration, the board, for their support in this program. And we hope that that support will continue. And I hope that APSA is there to continue this program with us. So thank you very much. And I'm going to introduce the 2 chaperones, Andre Farquharson, is a Spanish teacher at East High School, Deline Goody, social studies teacher also at East High School. But I'm going to start with Linnell Dunbar from Freddie Thomas.
Nihao, Ni Men Duo, Hin Hao Kan. You all look good today. China to me can only be described using many words such as memorable, inspiring, and educational. This trip was a once in a lifetime opportunity granted to me by the Rochester City School District, APSA, and the Foreign Language Department. China this past summer, we got to visit historical sites such as the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, and a Buddhist monastery. One of my favorite experiences was when I went to one of the markets and I sat at the stool of one of the market vendors and I worked down the price to buy this shirt. China this past summer has led me to become a better individual and will most likely help me to get a good job after college with a major in foreign language.
Nihao wo jiao Michonne Ewan wo I Zhongguo. While we were in China, we visited the Dandelion School, a school located on the outer strip of Beijing that helped migrant children who couldn't afford an education have the opportunity to get one. The Dandelion School was my favorite part of China. Being able to help kids who are less fortunate than me was a feeling that was just so great. It was a feeling that I will always remember. The Dandelion School helped kids who couldn't afford an education. I'm sorry. Okay. We were helping a teacher who with students between the ages 9 and 12 learn the colors of the rainbow and the alphabets. I will never forget when one of the little girls came up to me crying to tell me thank you for everything. This experience is something that I will always keep with me. You don't know how many of my friends wish they were learning Chinese. This was the opportunity that I got to learn Chinese, and now that I'm taking Spanish in school, I feel that with all these languages, I'll be able to be successful in any career that I take.
Ni hao, wo jiao Aisha. Hello, my name is Asha Liu. The night market in Beijing is equivalent to the nightlife in New York City. With all the fun and excitement, I was forced to try new things. Located in Wafujing, it's a place to be for excitement. Visiting the market, it drove me to try new things such as scorpions, snakes, silkworms, and even dog meat, things that you wouldn't even imagine. It expanded my views on what the norm is considered to be. Going on the trip, it forced me to no longer frown upon what I didn't know, but allowed me to embrace them with open arms. Never imagining going all the way to China, I am very blessed that I had this opportunity. Learning French for now 5 years and now Chinese, this trip has not only matured me emotionally, but intellectually. I am very happy that I was able to go. Given the opportunity, I would recommend this trip to anyone. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm a little nervous, but anyway. Ni hao, wo ming zao mu fa. Hi everyone, my name is Pierre Muhammad, and one of my fondest memories in China was my encounter with a Chinese soldier. Why? Because we as Americans have a tendency to stereotype Chinese soldiers as being unapproachable, very serious, and just plain unfriendly. But my experience was much different. I was amazed at the fact how the soldier was embracing towards our culture. He wanted to know about my language, my race, and our country. And if asked to sum up China in one word, I would simply say magnificent, because China has so much to offer. And I want to thank the Rochester City School District, the APSA Scholars Foundation, the State Department for this amazing opportunity. Thank you, guys.
你好，我很高兴是在。The experience that stuck with me the most was our trip into Inner Mongolia from Beijing to work with this environmental group called the Green Long March. And we went there to take a look at how farmers, with the support of the government, were creating biofuel tanks to create methane to heat their houses and power their stoves. And I think that it was just interesting to see how when you go from more of kind of a westernized city of Beijing to the more kind of old style part of China, you get to see what life is really like for Chinese people. And you could see that it was beautiful, but it was functional. You could see that the government had industrialized and shaped the land to their needs and to help fit the needs of the people. I think opportunities like this are important because travel helps create open-minded students. And I think that the most important thing for growing up as a student in this district is to learn diversity. So I'd like to thank the city school district and APSA for this opportunity.
你好，我叫是泰铢. I'm a senior visual arts major at School of the Arts, and this is my second year to China. This year, I was able to go to many different places than I was last year. I was able to climb a mountain and see China from above, as well as meet many new business leaders. This experience has allowed me to choose Chinese as well as business as my major in college next year.
大家好，我叫盛月，我很高兴说跟你们。My name is Joseph Santiago, and I'm from the Northwest College Prep School. While, like Yanni, this was also my second time in China. For me, my most memorable experience was at the Minority Museum. There I learned that, like the U.S., China is also a melting pot. I learned there that China has over 50 Chinese minorities. While there, I saw traditional homes, traditional dances, and traditional clothing. For me, this trip was a blessing. It allowed me to experience a whole other culture and broaden my horizon. Learning Chinese as a third language has given me an immeasurable advantage over the average student. For example, Daniel, who was a part of the first trip, is now in Guilin, China, teaching English. Finally, I would like to thank the Rochester City School District and the APSA program for giving me this opportunity.
你们好，我的汉语名字是伊利，但是我的美国名字是 Lila Eaton. I would like to take this opportunity to tell the members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Brizard that the study of Chinese must be continued in the Rochester City School District. If it's not continued to be offered in the Rochester City School District, then this opportunity with APSA may not be available for other students to take advantage of in the future. People need to realize that the study of another language and culture is just as important as the study of other academic subjects in schools. This trip to China really opened our eyes to a culture and society other than our own. It gave us the skill set and language necessary to communicate effectively within that culture, and it broadened our horizons as global citizens, forging the way for us to become the next new generation of America's youth ambassadors. For this trip for me, I studied abroad for the past 2 summers in China. I was one of the people who went the first year. Has shaped my plans for the future in that next year I'm going to go to college and study Mandarin Chinese. And additionally, my exposure to Chinese businesses and the political workings at the embassies that we were able to visit has inspired me to go into studying international relations and possibly political science in the future. It is critically important that this crucial language continue to be offered in the city school districts, especially because of the global economy of today and the numerous opportunities that the APSA program will continue to provide for students like us in the future. Thank you.
Nihao, I'm Deline Goody, and I teach Social Studies Global 2 at East High School. And I had the wonderful opportunity to travel with these amazing young people in China, and I can say they told you a very fraction of their actual experiences there. As a global history teacher, it's a daunting task to get kids to understand that what we're teaching them in the classroom is not just a story in a book. The people, places, and events actually occurred. And these kids got the opportunity to experience history firsthand by climbing the Great Wall of China, walking through Tiananmen Square, meandering through the maze of streets in the Forbidden City. They got to interact with the locals and students there when they went to the museums and the temples and shrines and the many markets we went to. And it all happened because of programs such as this, sponsored by APSA, the U.S. State Department, and supported by the Rochester City School District. As the kids interacted with them and their language evolved, it was wonderful to see the conversations get deeper and deeper and the friendships bloom. that will last a lifetime. Let's face it, for many years, China has been the sleeping dragon behind closed doors. Well, the dragon's awake, it's thirsty and hungry, and it wants more industry, technology, and knowledge of the world abroad. Chinese language is important so that we can step up and be part of that and get to know China. Other districts are failing to recognize that, but with this program and introducing more language teachers, Chinese language teachers within the district, we are bringing our kids a step ahead in the Rochester City School District. We are making them global citizens. We are making them citizens of the 21st century. 谢谢你.
Superintendent, board, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, a warm good evening. As a foreign language teacher, this trip was the highlight of my professional career outside of the classroom. To see our young people take on this endeavor, fly across the world, embrace a new culture and language is simply amazing. Right? They took everything they learned from the textbooks and applied it in authentic daily situations. Right? That's what a foreign language does for our young students. To see these students out there interacting with the daily life is amazing. One of my fondest memories of our trip was our second night in China. We went to the supermarket like a block away. And we are fascinating to the Chinese, and they are fascinating to us. And they came up, they want to speak, and so on. I'm outside, warm night, and everyone, we're waiting on each other. A Chinese guy approached, and he wanted to know about our group, different cultures, and so on. And what I saw was our young people helping each other work with this language. I heard students say, no, that's not the way you say this. That's a past tense, use this. Students were making mistakes, but teaching each other how to maneuver it, and that was a great experience. All right. Now, our young people, we are in the midst of some great negotiators here. It shows how comfortable they were with the Chinese language. All right. These young men and women know how to negotiate in the language. Right. We went to the markets many times, and they used the language, and they got the price they wanted for things, all right? I have seen Asha, for example, pull up a seat and negotiated her price. I'm there waiting, and like, okay, it's taking longer, whatever, but she's doing her thing. Finally, she came running to me, beaming. I said, Asha, what took you so long? She said, Senor, I got this for this price. I said, what were you talking about? She said, Senor, I told the Chinese lady that I was a struggling student. My sister was ill. My dog had one leg, whatever. She got the price, all right? She was very excited. I've seen this over and over. Again, using the language in authentic situation. Joseph, for example, when I shop, Joseph would say, Senor, what did you pay for that? Whatever I say, I would get it for cheaper. I said, oh, yeah. This was an amazing opportunity for these young people. We need to encourage our young people to see the world view. All right? We must continue to promote foreign language in our district and increase our foreign language teachers of foreign language to our young people so more students can get this opportunity. All right? I was honored to have accompanied these young people abroad. All right? They represented themselves well. They were great ambassadors for the Rochester City School District and for the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In closing, I just want to, the group was about 28 students. There were 8 from Rochester, 9 from District of Columbia, and then Atlanta and Boston were added this year. The first year it was just the DC schools and Rochester. So the group was about 28 students. I want to introduce you just to the 4 seniors, for Kira from Wilson, Juliana from Soda, Joseph from Northwest Prep, and Lila from Soda. Joseph happens to be the valedictorian of his graduating class. And on that note, I close and I thank you all very much for your patience. And again, thank you very much.
Jeanette, where's Jeanette? Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. As you guys are seating, want to say again, congratulations for going. And I guess one message for Lila as she's walking out, we are going to, I know you said to offer more Chinese language studies. Next year, when we open the early college high school, if you've not heard, the partner opening the school with us is Asia Society. You're going to see more kids actually begin to go to China, and Mandarin Chinese, we believe, will be the language of choice for that particular school. So more coming, more coming. In fact, I just want to also announce tonight that it gives me great pleasure to introduce Marlene Blocker as the new principal for the early college high school. Is Marlene here? If you don't know Marlene, she's current principal of Francis Parker School number 23. She has been with us in the district since 1987 under various roles, including teacher, assistant principal, and principal. For the last 8 years, she's been the principal of Francis Parker School number 23. Under her leadership, School number 23 has been recognized for their academic excellence in New York State and their artistic contributions to the cultural arts district. School 23 is currently a finalist for the prestigious 0910 National Excellence in Urban Education Award. You may recall that School 58 was one of the schools listed last year. She is a member of the Rochester Leadership Academy, helping her fellow principals develop their leadership skills to this professional work networking group in partnership with St. John Fisher. She also is the principal who lead our National School Leaders Network. She meets with experienced principals and have dinner on a regular basis to discuss practice. Marlene is passionate about building relationships with children and families and works diligently to create a structured, nurturing environment conducive for teaching and learning. Her experience in both teaching and leading have enriched the lives of many students and make her a natural choice to lead this new school in the district. So thank you, Marlene, for taking on this challenge. You may also, talking about scholars, one of our students, today I got this message I really want to share with you. If you read the new edition of the Rochester Educator, he is on the bottom left-hand corner. Today his dad passed by and proudly showed me his first early acceptance to Harvard University. So if I may ask you to stand. You may recall he was one of the winners of the Hispanic Heritage Award ceremony, I think it was last month or 2 months ago. It is about, at times, one student at a time, but the fact is that we have scholars in our midst, and I really want to keep doing this as we get more and more students who are getting into these schools. So this is a very early admissions to a prestigious university. The last thing we have on our presentation tonight, and I'd like to bring Jeanette Silvers up to help me make this presentation. There's been a lot of talk lately about graduation rates, about changes in cohort, etc. Tonight, we're going to present to you some of the new requirements for graduation. We've been saying to the community that the level of rigor, the requirements are increasing, making it more and more difficult for students to graduate from high schools in 4 years. It is something we actually embrace because we know that the students who are graduating from our schools will be better prepared for post-secondary. So what you're going to hear in the next few minutes are the actually three big changes in the New York State requirements for high schools. One is that the definition of the word cohort is being altered, and you'll see that in a second. The second, if you've been watching or reading the school report cards, the benchmark that's been used for high schools has been 55% graduation. Now that's been increased to 80% graduation. So our 75% goal that we've been talking about for the past 2 years has been ramped up a little bit for us. And you're going to see that also in the past, if a school, say, was at 50% graduation rate, to meet adequate yearly progress, per definition, from New York and the federal government, they had to get a 1% increase in graduation. Now they're looking for a 20% closing gap every single year. In other words, they're looking for an acceleration of the work that we need to do to move our schools to greater proficiency. As we've said, no one has the patience anymore to wait for incremental gains and making sure kids are ready for post-scholastic work. So with that, I'm going to let our Chief of Accountability actually give you a presentation on this new accountability.
Good evening, Commissioners of the Board of Education, Superintendent Brizard, and the members of the public. The late Robert Wegman, a highly regarded, extremely successful entrepreneur and community partner, stated, "The only mistake is not setting your goals high enough. Through our goals, we determine the height of our journey to excellence. Through our pursuit to achieve these goals, we shape our behavior. It is through our behavior and role modeling that we create a culture of excellence." The Office of Accountability staff holds themselves responsible to maintain and promote the highest of accountability standards to meet the strategic plan goals set by the Superintendent Brizard. The following presentation regards the latest graduation standards set by New York State. The graduation rate is determined by dividing the number of cohort members who graduate with a local Regents diploma by the number of total cohort members and multiply the results by 100. For example, the total cohort membership was at 178. The graduates of the total cohort membership with local or Regents diploma was at 146. The graduation rate, 146 divided by 178 times 100 equals 82%. Changes in the determination of total cohort membership. In 2005, the 2005 total cohort consists of all students as of June 30th, 2009, regardless of their current status, who first entered grade 9 anywhere in the world during the 2005-06 school year, July 1st, 2005 to June 30th, 2006, or for, in case of those ungraded students with disability, reach their 17th birthday during the 2005 school year, and who last enrollment in the school or district was 5 months or longer, excluding July and August, and whose last enrollment was less than 5 months, but who had a prior enrollment in the school or district between July 1st, 2005 and June 30th, 2009, that was 5 months or more. The change to this is that any student entering this district or school, on the first day, we are responsible to graduate that student. There's no longer that 5-month rule with all that definition. It's the very first day they entered the school and the district. We are responsible to graduate the student. The next piece is the 2005 cohort who expected to graduate 4 years later in 2009, determines the annual yearly progress, AYP, in 2005 was a 55% graduation rate or better, or improved by 1 percentage point from the previous year. This looks like example 1. School A has a 68%. The goal was 55. School A made AYP. Example B. School B has a 52% graduation rate. It did not make the goal of 55. It was under the 1 percentage point calculation. They looked at last year, added 1 percentage point. 50 plus 1 is 51. School B met AYP because it was over the 51%. It was at 52. In today's cohort, 2006, expected to graduate this year, 2010, and beyond, now has to have a graduation rate of 80%. Or a 20% gap reduction between the state's goal and the school's prior year graduation rate. Example A, School A has an 87% graduation rate. The state is at 80%. School A makes AYP. School B has a 57% graduation rate. The state's goal was 80%. They have to go into the 20% gap reduction. The state looks at last year's graduation rate of 50%, subtracts it from the 80%, giving you a 30% percentage point gap. Take 20% of that 30%, you come up with a 6 percentage point. The target is 56% for this year's cohort, 2006. 57% the school had, the school made AYP. The summary made by the Board of Regents to meet the federal requirements in 2006, the whole three things that changed: 1-day rule from 5 months to 1 day, from 55% to 80%, and from a 1 percentage point to a 20% gap reduction.
So we'll take questions on the dais, Commissioner, on that.
Thank you.
So as we are sitting, Commissioner, Mr. President, just to reiterate, now if a student shows up in the district for 1 day only, they're part of the cohort for the graduating year. Second, the goal's gone from 55 to 80%, and no longer the schools have a chance of increasing by 1% each year as they strive or march toward 55%. Now they have to close the gap by 20% each year as they move toward 80%. That's our report tonight.
Thank you. I'll entertain questions from my colleagues. I would just ask, because of the weather that's outside, I would ask if you could keep your questions and comments brief so we can move through our agenda. And I'll start with questions from Commissioner Cruz. Any questions for the superintendent on this presentation?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, any questions for the superintendent on this presentation?
No.
Commissioner Campos, any questions for the superintendent on this presentation? The only thing I'll say is the state's always changing things, and this seems to be consistent with what they have been talking about for a while, and consistent with the new commissioner's philosophy.
Yes, and in alignment, of course, with No Child Left Behind.
Commissioner White, any questions?
Yeah, very briefly, how realistic is 80%? My commentary is not very realistic at all. I'm extremely hopeful about the progress that we have made, but I just don't think that 80% is realistic. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm a doubting Thomas, but I think it's important that we be realistic about our goals, and I just don't think that 80% is realistic. And I'm curious as to what your estimation is of, what your view is of that 80%. And that's basically within 4 years, is that right?
Within 4 years, but it's also why they have the gap closing at the 20% each year. With the example that Dr. Silvers actually explained, if a school is at 50% and the 80% is the goal, so they have to increase by 6% the following year. It is a stretch goal for many schools, and I believe you've seen from the last list from New York State that I believe the alternative is going to be for the schools to actually be closed if they can't meet the requirements fast enough. So I think it's a way of pushing the systems to actually get to 80% as quickly as possible.
And that you sort of answered my second question, which is what are the consequences for a school and or a school district for its failure to meet those what I believe to be very unrealistic goals?
You know, they also came up with the new differentiated accountability system, and you saw some of the lists of requirements as part of the Race to the Top application. You're going to see many more requirements to remove leadership, change staff, close schools, or come up with systems to make a high school actually perform much better. You know, in terms of what's realistic and not is not something I guess we can debate, and I'm sure the Board of Regents debated this quite a bit as well. But I believe some of it comes from the federal government. Am I correct, Dr. Jeanette?
Right, it's all from the federal government. Yeah. All of the rulings that we're doing, that the Board of Regents is trying to follow the federal government.
You know, and one other, this is a comment. I sort of look at this as sort of like an unfunded mandate. And my question would be not to you, but to our representatives in Congress in Albany, what are you going to do about the concentration of poverty that affects how well our kids are able to perform? What are you going to do about domestic violence, HIV rates that are off the charts here for women of color that distract them from doing their job? I mean, that's why I say this is unrealistic. Poverty is not an excuse, but it surely does explain why we will no doubt struggle to get to 80%.
Thank you.
Don't disagree.
Commissioner Williams.
No questions.
Representative, Student Rep DeLoss. Thank you. We will now, Mr. Superintendent, does that conclude your report? Thank you very much. I skipped speakers addressing an agenda item. Because we only have few speakers, I will lump together speakers addressing an agenda item and speakers not addressing an agenda item. Our first speaker on speakers addressing an agenda item is Laurie Thomas. Is Laurie Thomas here? And Laurie Thomas will be followed by Charlie Richardson.
Good evening, members of the board and community. We have recently heard that 9 of our high schools have failed. And with this failure, school districts have the option of closing the failing schools and transferring students to better ones. Well, first of all, schools do not fail, students fail. And transferring failing students to better schools will only ensure that the better schools will begin to fail. To consider this option means that the district is definitely working with a deficit mentality and wishes to secure more federal dollars by causing more schools to fail. These schools can be converted to charter schools. Once again, schools do not fail, students fail. To choose this option would set the tone for the mayoral takeover of schools whose eventual purpose is to privatize education. This option separates students into 2 groups: those who have parents that can meet the criteria necessary for their child to remain in the charter school, and those children whose parents are unable or unwilling to meet charter school demands. With this option, we are forcing the student to live with the consequences of a decision that they have no control over. This option segregates students who have from those who have not, forcing our most marginalized children once again to the bottom of the barrel. We can begin phasing these schools out and replacing the entire staff. Yes, there are members of school staff that should be replaced. However, we all know that replacing the entire staff of 9 schools just will not happen and should not happen. Just as schools do not fail, you cannot conclude that the entire staff in a building has failed in their efforts to educate our children. Finally, we can improve these schools by employing a variety of strategies, including replacing the principal, offering financial incentives for staff, implementing per-pupil budget formula that is weighted based on student needs. The important message here is to improve these schools through a variety of strategies. Facilities modernization. You have heard many community members speak to this board about how to improve our schools. Now it's time to listen. You have read and understood the data concerning class size, teacher style as opposed to delivering instruction, using more modern methods of reaching students who struggle with the curriculum, such as smartboard technology and assigning laptops to students. It's time to listen. We have spoken to you about modernizing instruction through the use of project-based outcomes instead of the current cookie-cutter approach to instructional deliverance. It's time to listen. You have been informed about the many ways we can modify the teacher-student ratio so that the children can receive one-to-one instruction they deserve in order to reach for and achieve their true educational potential. It's time to listen. This community has told you that technology should not be an add-in, but an integral part of the learning environment. And it's time to listen. It's time to listen to this community when we speak in the tone of solutions to our problems and modernize our facilities to keep pace with the modernization of the world. It's time to listen to us when we tell you we know how our children learn best. It's time to listen when we tell you that the intellectual property that exists within this community, and you don't have to hire outside consultants to solve our problem. It's time to listen. It's time to listen because the community is no longer willing to sit back and be ignored, disrespected, and dismissed. It's time to listen because now the future of this board will depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie Richardson. Charlie Richardson will be followed by Denis Watson.
Thank you all very much for an opportunity to speak again to the board. This is probably the third time over 3 years that I'm speaking about this. Well, Franklin, as you know, the Learning for Life, which everybody had a packet on what it is and everything, how it's working in the other schools, well, the results are back into the schools now. I'm not able to get a copy of anything of how many in the different schools and all the failing schools unless someone in education approves that. That is the key, especially with Franklin School, that if number one, as I said before, if we tested these 7th graders coming in now, not back then, but now, and see really where they stand, are they going to have a chance to go up? But finding out what these youth want to do. What do they want to do from 3:15 in the day till 6 o'clock? If we knew what they were interested in, we could get many, many mentors that know a lot about what the youth may be interested in. And if we could do that, there's all kinds of clubs that could be involved in that. These kids would not be on the street. But I cannot understand why no one here cares about that Learning for Life, don't really understand it. Second problem is, okay, Mr. Broussard, you had asked when you first came here that you wanted to make sure that you had a good parent group, you know, to represent the parents in there. And elections went out, and community members were allowed to run. A person like myself, and there's 9 other of us on that board, are community members. Now, the new system is that we're not going to be involved at all. And I'm not sure that that's exactly happy for you. The 174 people that voted me in, okay, out of the Northeast, okay, they want to know why this is going to come to an end. And the amount of money that is probably being spent with whatever you're calling the department now, because it keeps on, you know, changing its name, with parent involvement, the Title I money in that. I'll tell you, it's not working, because every time we make a change, that person changed. And we specifically asked, and by the way, I'm speaking for myself, not for any of the organizations I belong to, but we have asked, are these changes in these bylaws that are trying to get done, are the superintendent asking for them? No. Okay. We're representing, we're paid to do that. Well, the thing is, they don't have the information of the parents themselves or these youth. They have no idea, but they just keep on putting us along. And you know, what they're trying to do is conquer and deserve. Same thing why they took down DAC a couple years ago. We don't need that amount of money being spent there. It could be spent in the classroom to help you get these kids around the school. And I hope that Franklin would be able to be a pilot school on that. Thank you.
Denis Watson, is Ms. Watson here? Denis Watson? Robin Vallauris? Robin Vallauris will be followed by Eileen Hartnett.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Broussard. My name is Robin Vallauris, and I have worked for the Rochester City School District since 1975. I was a classroom teacher for 23 years and have been a librarian for the last 11 years. When we learned of the possibility of consolidation of school and public librarians, I shared this news with the students and staff at my school. A 6th grade class in my school was not very happy about this, so they decided to use PhotoStory, a technology program they learned how to use in the library, to share with you some of the many things that happen in the library. Sorry. I planned to share this presentation with you at the December board meeting, but was deferred until tonight. I have since learned that only speeches are allowed during this portion of the board meeting. And so I prepared a CD with the students' photo story for each of you. School librarians wear many hats. We are a vital part of the instructional program. I hope you will take the time to view my students' work and see just some of the things that happen in the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen Hartnett. Ms. Hartnett?
Yes. Good evening, board members,
Good morning. Good evening.
parents, and colleagues. I'm Eileen Hartnett, and I'm a fourth grade teacher at School 29. I stand before you tonight to tell you about the significant value a full-time school librarian has made in the life of my students. Many of my students do not have an opportunity to go to the public library, so it's customary for me to take my fourth grade students to the Central Library in September. Of the students in my class, only 3 students had a library card to the public library, and only 1 of those 3 students used a public library on a regular basis. Even after our field trip, only 6 of my students received cards for the public library. Having daily access to the school library is critical for our students if we want them to develop a love of reading and have books available for them to use at home. Access to the library on a daily basis is only half of the equation. Each school needs a full-time librarian. Librarians are teachers and mentors to our students. Here are a few ways our librarian, Mary Miskell, positively impacts my students. Our librarian does a weekly lesson with my students that is connected to the curriculum. She does read-alouds. She has students identify the parts of a story, the main idea, and supporting details. She teaches and reinforces listening skills and note-taking skills. All of these skills are part of the New York State ELA exam. Our librarian teaches students how to research a topic using the Dewey Decimal System and the Internet. She reinforces the mechanics and organizational skills used in writing a report. These are skills a student starts to learn in 3rd grade and builds upon throughout his or her academic career. 2 years ago, our librarian wrote a grant for a professional weaver to work with 4th grade students. The librarian worked closely with the 4th grade teaching team to build thematic lessons and connect weaving to math, science, social studies, procedural writing, and African heritage. Thanks to our librarian, my students learned curriculum content in a kinesthetic manner. This year, our librarian was the impetus to having the 4th grade students participate in the photography grant at the George Eastman House, celebrating the city's 175th birthday. The grant enabled students to take photographs of their surroundings and write about how they are the change for our community. For my students, attending the George Eastman House and seeing their photos on the wall of this museum was a big thrill. I consistently tell my students they need to be as well educated as the students from the suburbs.
Ms. Hartnett, can you conclude, please?
Thank you. We need to make sure that our students receive every academic tool to succeed, and that includes having a library with a full-time librarian in each school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hartnett. We'll now move on to board reports, and again, I would ask if board members can just be as concise as possible because of the weather. And we'll start with our standing committee reports, and we'll begin with Commissioner Cruz and the Policy Committee.
Thank you. In order to keep it brief so we can have folks leave early, the Policy Committee had an excellent meeting. We went through a number of different issues. One of the policies that we're going to be talking about this evening is later in the agenda in terms of our homeless children and how we're dealing with that. So we'll be talking about that in a little bit. I'm trying to think here. One of the issues that we talked about was the change order policies. I know there's been some discussion prior to my coming here about that, but we're taking a look at that policy and see if we can give that some more consideration. We discussed it this month. Next month we'll be discussing it some more, and we're asking that any comments that other commissioners have with regard to the change order policy be sent to me by February the 9th, so we can continue the deliberation on February the 16th. We also went through the policy manual. As you know, President Evans, the policy manual is about 5.5 inches thick. Right. It's more of a weapon than it is a manual. And it's been used that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of break it down into portions, and what we're going to look at first and give priority to are those policies that have to do with legal standing, compliance issues, and those kinds of things, and get those done first, so that we can get back to good graces of either the feds or the state, and then go through the rest of the policy manual over the next year and review each one of those policies, so that our goal is that by the end of this year we will have the manual reviewed completely, changed, modified accordingly, and having brought all those policies to the board as well. Let's see. We also had discussion with regard to recruiting parent representatives for our committees, and I know there's been a series of emails that have gone back and forth on that. What we thought, instead of just sort of looking at our committee and what needs we had, we thought we would look at a much more wider kind of casting of the net, as it were, to a number of different groups within the district, so that we can really look at all the possibilities of people who might be interested in serving on our committees. And one of the things we discussed was to create a form of some sort that would give a breakdown of our policy, of our committees, with some explanation of what we do, and have people fill the form out according to what kinds of interests they have and what particular committees they have. And then so we'll review those and look for people that might help to serve. And where our goal is to have a major problem, and that is to have so many applications that we're going to take time to go through them all. So, and then our work plan, we discussed the number of items that we're going to accomplish over this next year is obviously the updating of the policy manual, board representation from our folks in the community, our parents. We're going to be looking at code of ethics for board members, wellness policy, the change order policy, which I mentioned before, a student attendance policy that needs to be updated, and a revision to the responsible bidders policy, and a policy regarding Buy American, which I know one of our commissioners is interested in taking a look at as well. What I'm going to ask, and what the committee is asking, is that anyone who has any additional policies that they think the committee should be looking at, to please give us in writing by February the 10th a summary of what that policy is, so that we can add it to our agenda. Anything after that, we're really going to just prioritize the work plan items that I just gave you, and those are going to be our priorities, and anything after that will have to be secondary, unless, of course, there's an urgent situation or something that we have to spend some time on. So, again, just if you can be kind enough to get us any of those ideas by February the 10th, we'll work them into our work plan for the year. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cruz. And I would just remind my colleagues by February 10th to submit any proposals or policy initiatives that you may want to have considered at the policy committee table to Commissioner Cruz by February 10th. Commissioner Powell and the Finance Committee.
Yes, thank you. 3 points of personal privilege first. I expect to be participating in the Big Five Lobby Day on February 23rd, 24th. as part of the Big Five steering committee. Second, I want to acknowledge, particularly since it's not on our agenda, Marlene Blocker's pending appointment to the early college prep program. Marlene is the principal at my son's school, so I see her every day. And for a long time now, I've been, is it okay if I tell this story, Marlene? I've been bugging her pretty much at least twice a year, asking her when was she going to take an assignment at a bigger school, because it wasn't fair that all that talent should only go to one of the smallest schools in our repertoire, that she could have a big impact on in a bigger school. And earlier, I think it was last spring, she told me, well, my youngest is finally going to be of school age. And I thought, oh, how could I not have known that? We were pregnant together. But once I heard that come from her mouth, I completely recognized the importance of putting family first and doing things at the appropriate time, and I forgive her for waiting all this time to take a bigger challenge, and I thank her for stepping up to that challenge. The third point of personal privilege, I've been around this district as a parent for 23 plus years. I've been around long enough to see what happens when libraries get closed. And when our budget season comes up, I forewarn anybody who dares put through a budget that decreases the number of librarians, because I've watched over and over the downside outcomes of closing libraries. I've watched at school 16 library get gutted of their books after the librarians were cut back, and the amount of money it took to rebuild that library was hardly worth the savings in salaries. I watched the reputation of School 33 back in 18, 20 years ago plummet because they had a choice of keeping their librarian or something else. They chose something else, and their test scores took a decade to recover, and a new leader in Larry Ellison. So there are lessons to be learned there, and since we did have speakers on that topic, I wanted to make my position on that absolutely clear. So on to the Finance Committee report. We've met on Thursday, January 21st. We reviewed resolutions 550 through 559. It was quite a light agenda. It does include some final payments with change orders, one procurement resolution, one information technology, and several other resolutions. We did bring for the first time the change order policy to the Finance Committee, and for discussion or for presentation, really, it was the first time anyone had seen it, and we referred it to the Policy Committee. So that satisfies the commitment I made back in December to put something on the table on change orders for the board to discuss. Our next Finance Committee meeting is February 18th at 5:30 p.m. That concludes
Do we
my
have any
report.
financial reports or no?
Yes, thank you. We do have the monthly financial reports. It is on our dais, and I move that the board accept these reports.
It's been moved by Commissioner Powell that we accept the monthly financial reports as of December 31st, 2009. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the monthly financial reports?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Just a couple of points. One, I had a request in, I thought it was a standing request in to get the financials on a monthly basis for the food service operations. I received them last month, but I didn't get them for this month. I put in a second request through the board clerk, and I have not received them.
You want to follow up with the clerk after the meeting? Madam Clerk, if you can follow up with Commissioner Williams after the meeting and make sure he gets it.
Do you have it? No, I had a request into her, and she forwarded the request into the administration almost a week or two ago.
Point of
I have not
order,
got it.
this doesn't have anything to do with the monthly financial reports.
The other,
The other item?
yeah, the other item is, in looking at the monthly financials, when I go through it, I always expect to see that the cash disbursements on a monthly basis ties with the expenditures from the available funds report, and they never do. And this month, they're off by about almost $2.5 million. So could somebody get me an explanation in terms of why those numbers are off?
Ms. Martelli? Is that something that you can get for Commissioner Williams after this meeting?
Yes, could you tell me again where you're looking, please?
Okay, on
the
your...
available funds report.
Right, on the available, well, what happens on the available funds report, for example, the expenditures as of, the year-to-date is about $284 million.
Okay.
What I generally do is I look at the expenditures from the prior month, get an idea, well, get the number in terms of what was spent for the current month.
Right.
Okay. And for this month, it's about $75 million, give or take. But then when I look at the cash disbursements number, here it's about $72 million, $72.5 million. So it's off. And I noticed,
Go ahead.
and I always expect these numbers to tie.
And they won't.
Okay.
And they shouldn't. Because on your available funds report, when you're looking at the column that says expenditures, you're actually taking the pre-encumbrance, the encumbrance, and the expenditures. When you're looking at the cash flow report, you're only looking at what has been paid. So there could be expenditures at that time, but it has not been paid, so it's what goes through the bank. When you're looking at the cash flow report, that's what has actually gone through the bank.
Right, and the expenditures,
Shows everything that's been paid but not necessarily cleared the bank.
okay.
I can give you, what I'll do is for 1 month, I'll break it down so you can see exactly what it is.
Okay.
But they should not tie together. One is a cash flow report, what's gone through the bank. The other one is showing available funds, what has been put through the system.
Yeah, but they should, okay, we talk about, but
I
they
will-
should, okay.
I will detail that out for you, but the two will not equal, and they
Okay.
shouldn't.
But you should be able to reconcile it, though.
If you have all the details, so you can see what has cleared the bank versus what we have cut checks for, yes.
Okay, okay.
And that's what we do on the bank reconciliation every month.
All right. If you can get that.
I certainly will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President.
The Food Services Commissioner will get you copies momentarily. Actually, we have them.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the approving the monthly financial reports, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Commissioner Powell, the rest of your finance report?
Only to say that the information technology resolution is on P-cards, with the expectation that we'll expand the amount of purchasing that happens with the P-card and therefore be able to avoid paper checks, avoid the cost of creating paper checks and sending them out, very much the way we as individuals do online banking, the burden of putting the postage stamp on and mailing the bill to our creditor is shifted to the bank. The cost is shifted to the P-card vendor and should generate a great deal of savings for us. So we'll see more P-card transactions and fewer paper checks when this is implemented.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, were you getting ready to say something?
No, just that the report on the food services we have.
Okay.
Just that the person was on vacation. This is why we can get it done.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
The Board Governance Committee will meet on Thursday, February 4th. We have a big agenda. One is to start the discussion on the proposed 2010 board goals. We have a board retreat that is tentatively scheduled for February 27th in order to outline those, but in order to make it fruitful, we figured it would be a good idea to start this discussion to be able to bring this to the full board. And also, every board member will receive proposed board goals, at least to work off of something, so that when we come together on potentially the 27th, we can actually really delve into it as opposed to just have a a preliminary conversation about this. So the first item is proposed 2010 board goals. The second piece is 2010 board deliverables. So a lot of times we have these policies and then there's always deliverables that we're supposed to receive, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. So we'll use the governance committee as a vehicle in order to create those action items to go to the different committees or to the administration to make sure we're receiving all of the proper information that we should be receiving. And lastly, we'll talk about the board reform training that has been on our plate. I know that President Evans, you've been working on that as well. And this year, we have put together a work plan and look forward to hearing from the fellow committee members in order to better align our oversight and management of the district. So our primary objectives preliminarily are to deliver the board goals, to draft and deliver them for 2010 by February or March, and formulate, discuss, and deliver assessments for 1, the board staff, 2, superintendent, obviously, and do that on a more regular basis. We haven't really done it as often as we should have. We should be doing it. And the third one is doing a board self-assessment, and from that self-assessment, looking at opportunities where we can be better aligned. And the last piece is to develop and communicate a system to track the work of the board, including the mandated practices such as the CAFR resolution review and those associated goals. So we've got a lot on our agenda for the year, but it's a good one. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Hold on one second. Commissioner, you have a question related to
her report.
to Commissioner Campbell's report?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Loss, what's your question?
As far as like for the board goals, you talking about board goals, I know the student rep can't really do anything, but is it cool if I sit down with the new student rep to come in September and talk about some goals that we have?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tournament?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
You're a member of this. You're a member of this board,
Thanks.
so you can recommend.
Thank you.
And I would just add, Commissioner Campbell's budget priorities will also be a discussion
Yes.
in that
Yep.
retreat. Mr. Superintendent, you already did your report. Commissioner White and the Excellence and Student Achievement Committee.
Yes, sir. The Excellence and Student Achievement Committee met on Thursday, January 14th at 5:30 p.m. to discuss the pre-K and early childhood program. An extensive program review was provided by Robin Hooper and Andy Wheatcraft. Next month, Excellence and Student Achievement Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, February 11th at 5:30. The committee will be presented with the district's year-end highlights at that time. I think, Jeanette, are you presenting that? Yes. So I really look forward to that. As always, this committee is open to the full board as well as to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams and the Audit Committee.
The Audit Committee did not meet this month. We have a meeting scheduled for the first week in March.
Thank you. Student Rep, do you have a report?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to give my gratitude to Gabe. He's no longer here, but Gabe is the IB senior with me at Wilson, and thank the Lord we will be out in 5 months. So, Gabe, if you're watching. Another thing real quick is I have an SLC alumni here as well. Justine, if you want to stand up. Justine is in her second year at MCC, and she's doing her thing.
Justine, who's going to stand up? Justine?
Stand up. And she's going to kill me when we leave. But just real quick, shout out to the Teaching and Learning Division. I had a great time at the Academic Showcase. It was really hard to get to every single school, especially with the maze, but I was very impressed with the turnout and the amount of people that came out. As well as I've also been making a lot of school visits lately, along with the board goals, as I asked Commissioner Campos, or Vice President Campos, is as I'm visiting these schools, I'm looking at things in the classrooms and the instruction, as well as the relationships between the principals and administration and the kids in the buildings to see where we can improve that daily. So those visits have been great. I'm supposed to be visiting Jefferson next week. And real quick for my actual report,
how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Anne Frank once said this. At this point, we as a district are facing a lot. We are constantly being pushed to make some of the toughest decisions for our kids. We are caught between a rock and a hard place to maintain our professionalism but leave out the emotion. I am passionate about the education that our kids receive, and I will keep fighting so they can have the best. It is essential that we value every moment as educators, and we value the relationships we've built. Like Anne Frank, I'm speaking out because when the Nazis took over, she kept quiet. At this time, I am asking the board to make wise decisions, that what is in the best interest for our kids. We are in a deep dilemma with the mayoral control, but we cannot lose sight of what's important and keep moving forward in a positive direction that best practices have and will continue to establish. With that said, SLC met yesterday at 3:30, and we discussed some coming up projects. We are partnering with Rochester School for the Deaf, as well as we are hoping to partner with Gates Chila High School to have some concentric conversations on the difference of our education system and their education system, which also goes along with language. I take sign language. I'm in my second year, and I'll be graduating with 2 different languages when I finish in June, sign and Spanish. We also are looking at doing a mural here at Central Office with remodeling. I am just hoping to sit down to talk with Tom and Superintendent Brizard about maybe where and if we can do that, as well as going to School 29 in the ortho wing and doing some community service with their kids of disability there. And we also talked about mayoral control, and SLC's opinion was really interesting because we felt that a lot of it has to do with, we feel that like the decision is being made and we don't know enough about it in order to really put our first foot forward to understand like what does it mean that this mayor is taking over the Rochester City School District. And for me as a student board rep, and I've told a lot of people this, including Mayor Duffy when I saw him, was that this is the only committee or board that a student in this district and city sits on. Whether you get an advisory board if he takes over, I sit up here every month and make decisions with you all, not in a separate place, but right here. So it's just the firsthand experience and the empowerment that a student has sitting on a dais by month to make those important decisions, especially because they're in schools every single day. So I really encourage you guys just to keep hearing out the students and think about what's going to happen in the future for our kids.
Thank you.
That's my report.
Thank you, Student Rep. DeLoss. My report, I'll make it extremely brief. Again, I want to give kudos to the superintendent and his staff for the academic showcase. I always go, this is my second year going. I said that I would only stay an hour. I got there at about 9. I ended up leaving about 12:30, so I stayed about 3.5 hours, and I got a chance to see every single booth. I also want to thank the Highland Park Neighborhood Association. This is the second year in a row. I believe Ms. Pedraza Burgos attended, Commissioner Williams attended, Commissioner White attended. They hold a session every year in the neighborhood to talk about the school offerings that the city school district has to offer, but also other school offerings that are related, that are in the city that can keep families living in the city and in that neighborhood. They did a great job last night, as they do every year, so I want to thank them for doing that. And then also I want to remind viewers watching RCTV 15 that tonight's meeting, when it ends, hopefully we'll be done by 8:30, but if we're not done by 8:30, you can go to rcsdk12.org and watch online. And also our meetings air the Monday following each board meeting on Channel 15 at 7 p.m. So you can, if you missed this meeting, you're busy, you can catch us the following Monday if it suits your fancy. Also, thank you so much to the students from China that presented. I think that they did an excellent job. They were brief, they were concise, but we got a great flavor for what exactly they really learned while they were there in China. So thank you to the APEC and the district for facilitating that, and I look forward to hearing the students that will go last year. Commissioner Elliott is not here because she's under the weather, so I have a brief report from her on the Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. They did not meet this month, but will meet on Thursday, February 4th my birthday, to discuss the formation of legislative agenda and committee goals for the year. And that meeting will be on February 4th. Lastly, I want to encourage everyone to please go out to our Black History Month events that will be taking place throughout the month. The first event is Saturday, January 30th, 2010 at 1 p.m. It's going to be a fashion show that will kick off the styles of our heritage. Miss Sweet Potato Pie will be here, and also the Soul Food Babies. Thursday, February 2nd, 2010 at 5:30, there's going to be a Taste of Soul over at East High School with a performance by the Marshall Urban Steel Band. Tuesday, February 9th at 5:30, there will be the Oratorical Review. Performances by Dr. David Anderson, who will be doing a reenactment of Frederick Douglass. That will take place at 5:30 right here at the district on the 3rd floor. And that's February 9th. And then lastly, on February 25th, it will be our board observance. Timothy Mitchum will be our guest soloist that day. So I would encourage everyone to make it to those meetings. And then lastly, I would just say that I am the representative to the Federal Relations Network through the New York State School Boards Association, and I will be lobbying in Washington, D.C., along with Commissioner Campos, and I think there may be a CUBE meeting also that Commissioner White is a member of. So I'll have a report on that at the next board meeting.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Are those dates that you just read off posted to the website?
They should be on our website, and if they're not, let's please make sure that they are there, please, so the public can see them.
Yeah, me too.
So January 30th, February 2nd, Tuesday, February 9th, and then February 25th will be our Black History Month observance dates this month. Commissioner White?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that for those who don't know, Mayor Duffy is convening public hearings on mayoral control. I think the first one is February 2nd. I think it is at 7.
Baden.
It's at Baden, but anyway, you know what time it is? 6 o'clock. I would encourage all those who support it or don't support it to attend and make your opinion known, whatever that opinion may be.
There's also one on the 4th at School of the Arts.
Yeah, I think there's a series.
There's a series. I'm
Because
announcing the
SLC's
first one.
going.
All right. I want to thank my colleagues for their hard work in the committees. We are now going into the consideration of resolutions. The superintendent is pulling Resolution 567 for consideration. He will have us consider that next month because there's some things that he needs to work out on Resolution 567. So we'll be considering all resolutions in the packet with the exception of 567. The first set of resolutions are 511 through 549 and 585 through 583 through 587. The first set we will consider human capital initiatives. As you know, these are related to specific individuals, so any questions will have to be germane to the topic at hand and not related to specific individuals. With that, I'll entertain a resolution for numbers 511 through 549.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Powell. Questions or discussions around resolutions 511 through 549? Questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
The first one, 511. I read someone sent in some answers, some questions. The commissioner sent in some questions. The first one dealing with 511, and I read the response back. And one of the things that puzzled me was, in looking at the response in terms of what this position is, it sounds like it is, for the most part, sort of differentiated instruction. Is that, how different is this position from?
So if we can get Linda and Kirsten?
Is Ms. Hancock?
No, she's not here tonight, I don't think. We have a Dream Schools retreat tonight. Dr. Hancock is not here.
Good evening. Differentiated instruction is a method of instruction where the teacher designs the lesson to meet the various needs in the classroom. It's just good teaching, first teaching, whereas specially designed instruction is instruction that's developed for students with disabilities based on their individual needs as described in the IEP. Differentiated instruction happens in all classrooms, general ed classrooms, special ed classrooms, and again, it's good first teaching. It's designing instruction to meet all the different modalities, the multiple intelligences. You may change the product, you may change the method of instruction, but all the kids are learning the basic essentials. Especially design instruction, again, is really instruction based on the child's individual needs as outlined in a child's IEP.
If I may, Commissioner, this is also part of our special ed redesign. As you know, we've been hard at work actually retooling the special ed program in the district. This is part of the work that's been planned, has been part of our work plan for a while. So this is not something new that's just popped up in the past month. This has been part of our plans going back to the Council of Great City Schools report from last year.
Okay. Now, what happened to the person who was previously in this position?
I don't believe there was one. No. No, there was.
No, it's a new position. There was no one in that position previously.
Okay. Is this, and I take it, given the fact that there's a probationary period, this is not an Article 4 employee?
Oh no, SAG would not be on this list at all.
Okay. Now, the fact that it's new, who created the position and when?
Position was created as a result of the recommendations from the Council of Great City Schools and was part of the original reorganization of the Special Education Department. Almost everybody that is part of that new department was in place in August of last year. The district interviewed a couple rounds of interviews for this position, and we were not able to secure a candidate at that time. We reposted the position. We looked in some other places and reached out to some other contacts throughout the state, and we're very excited and pleased with Kathy Garcia's coming on board and supporting this work. This is really the instructional heart of special education. So this is really important work.
And we took great pains, Commissioner, to find the right person for this position. Again, we had to post, it was twice at least, to find the right individual for this job.
Okay. The problem I have is not so much with the person, and that's you choose. The issue that I have, though, is with the creation of the position itself, in the sense that creating a position is a sole function of the board. And as far as I know, the board never created the position, nor did we ever approve the salary. So that's...
This is where I guess you are approving the position and the salary. This is not an SEG position.
I understand.
Article 4. This is part of the normal Human Resources Division. The same way if you had a teacher of a particular subject area, or say a teacher of Mandarin Chinese, for instance, would be the same kind of process. I believe it's an ASAR position?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, right. Whether it's ASAR, SEG, Bente, or whatever else, and only the board can create the position, not, creating the position is the sole function of the board itself, not anyone else. Regardless of whether it's right.
Yeah, right now, Commissioner, I'm not sure I understand the question. To the normal business of, we create teacher positions and we submit to the Board of Education. This is what is in front of you right now.
This position to be created.
This is in front of you right now. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're saying that the board should be creating the job description and the...
Yes.
Are you saying that?
Yes.
I don't believe that's correct, Commissioner. When we create a teacher of chemistry, for instance, the board doesn't create a job description for a teacher of chemistry. That is done through us or principals looking to hire. The board has to approve the position, but the board has never created job descriptions and done searches for teachers or administrators.
Well, in this, well, maybe...
The board does create job titles, or does approve the job title.
And the funding.
Yes.
And the salary structure.
The only variance, I think, is in the area of SCG, but the board certainly creates the budget, creates the job titles. That's certainly the purview of the Board of Ed.
Right, and here, the other problem I have is when I look back at when we approved the budget back in 2009, and there were 362 positions in ASAR that we approved, and this was not one of them. That's...
Was this part of the plans for this current fiscal year? Yes. Yeah.
And you're asking us to vote to create this,
Yes.
to approve this position now?
I mean, this position could not be done without the funding being in place for it. It's part of the budget. So I'm not sure where you're getting that from, Commissioner. The same way, if we had an assistant principal at East High School, when that was approved, I guess back a few months ago, the board did not create a job description and then do a search for an assistant principal.
But that job description was in place already, not this one. I mean, this is sort of the same issue we had, the same issue we talked about at the organizational meeting in terms of whose responsibility is it, especially in the case where positions are abolished or not funded. And then we go back again and fill those, well, you go back again and fill those positions without board approval.
Commissioner Williams, I would recommend that we have a lengthy discussion just about this topic at a meeting. We can have David Farmello there, the legal counsel there, the superintendent, and so if you want to get further clarification around that.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, we can do that as soon as possible. Anything else on resolutions 511 through 549?
Yes.
Okay.
The same thing too on 515. Is it a new position, or is it a position that was?
This was also, I believe, in the budget for this fiscal year. Yes.
No? What? This?
PBS was something we introduced as part of our budget proposal from last year for this current fiscal year. Positive behavior systems. I believe I made a presentation on this. We talked about this being a partnership with the University of Rochester. Kristen, you want to elaborate?
Do you have a more specific question?
Well, yeah. The specific question is, one, is it a new position? And two, who created it? And when was it created? I mean, as far as I know, again, it goes back to the same point. Only the board, creating a position is the board's prerogative. And it can't be restricted, transferred, assigned.
Okay. So I guess I don't have a specific answer to your question, other than it sounds like it's the same conversation that President Evans suggested that needed further discussion, further in-depth discussion.
Okay.
It may also suggest that in that discussion we talk about process, because I don't believe the board gets involved in advertising positions and recruiting staff for schools or central office.
Oh, that?
So that's important for us to discuss the differences as well, Commissioner.
Yeah, but there's a difference between prerogative of the superintendent is to appoint, but only after the board creates the position. So within your budget, I mean, it's not the board doesn't go out and advertise.
Yes.
The board gives you the authority to fill the position. We have to create it. We have to fund it. For example, the same thing applies to Resolution 517.
I believe, Commissioner, we had some back and forth about 517, where this individual is actually not changing titles at all.
No, but yeah, it's not the person or anything. It's the position. I mean, when did we? Now, this is an Article 4, or is it?
No, it's not, Commissioner. It wouldn't
Okay.
be on this list if it was Article 4.
But even here, you know, again, when I go back and look at what the board approved in March in terms of funding those positions in ASAR, this was.
I believe this was part of our budget for the School for School Innovation for FY11. It was part of our budget deliberation from last year. I believe it was all in there. We can, again, I believe the President has a good suggestion.
Again, we'll get some clarification around this.
Okay.
Commissioner Williams, in your question, because we have had this conversation back and forth, and in fact, I even asked David Farmello about if a position isn't filled, does the board need to abolish it? So we can get some clarification here on this going forward. Anything else on 511 through 549 before I go to Commissioner White's question? Commissioner Williams?
No, from 511 to 549. No, that's it.
And so we have work schedule. We have work sessions scheduled. So at the next work session, this will be after we do resolutions. This will be a topic of the next work session. We will discuss this issue. Commissioner White.
Yeah, assuming that Commissioner Williams is correct, that there is some statutory basis for the board having this authority, and I know there was some exchange of emails this afternoon about this subject, but assuming that he's correct, I think it could all be rectified if we just added to these resolutions, resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, that the board create the position of the director of school innovation, just so that it was very clear for the record. And if he's right, the language does need to be in there, and if he's wrong, I don't see how it could hurt that it be put in there.
Right.
Right? It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's fine.
I think it's reasonable.
Are you offering an amendment to?
Well, I don't know that, I'm certainly
But
inclined to
going
vote for
forward.
these now, the way they are now, but.
Going forward, I
but
think-
going forward, I think that might make a lot of sense. Whether you're right or wrong, it probably does clean it up a bit to put the language in there. I don't see
Right.
how that could hurt.
I think the general counsel wants to say something.
I understand with respect to 517, it was originally in there as a placeholder because the name of the individual that was to hold that position had not yet been established. It was pulled because there was some discussion about whether or not it was deemed to be appropriate to go to the board. That is a new title, the Director of Innovation. That's not a title that currently has existed in the organization. My understanding, it was put back into the packet because it is a new title for the board to approve and then to but it could be done at the same time that you actually fill that slot with the individual whose name is identified in that resolution.
But, and so is that the same case for 511, in terms of being a new title?
If that's, I don't know if that's a new title. If that's a new title, then, if it's a title that has never existed in the organization previously in ASAR, then it's a title that would be created by the Board of Ed.
And 515 also?
If that is a new, again, if Acting Director of Positive Behavioral Supports is a new title within ASAR, that would be a position that would be a title which would be created by the Board of Education.
So what you're saying is that this can be done with the approval of the person, the title can be done at the same time through the resolution process.
You're identifying a person and you're identifying a title. Thank you. So, I mean, it could be done in a single resolution, it could be done as a separate resolution, in separate resolutions.
Since hopefully I still have the floor, I don't see why it couldn't be done in the same resolution. And if Commissioner Williams and others think that it's prudent to make the amendment, I don't have any problem with doing that. I just think that maybe going forward, that's the way we ought to handle it. But
Yeah, that's
I don't
fine.
think we should get stuck on this.
Right. Commissioner Williams, are you interested in making an amendment to that?
No.
Okay.
I'm not. I have one other question. On 519, at least in the packet that I have, there is...
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yeah.
If Commissioner Williams is submitting that as a motion, I mean, we have the option to offer an amendment to that motion, right? Because the motion is still live on the table.
Right.
So we could offer that, or I could offer that as a motion, as an amendment to the motion to say that from this point forward, we include the language that Commissioner Van White has offered as part of the process and just get it done. Because I absolutely agree with you, Commissioner. If it's something we can just do tonight and it can be from this point forward, then I think we'll take care of some of Mr.
So do you want to offer an amendment to the
I
motion?
offer the amendment that would include the language that Commissioner White
So
has offered.
there is an amendment to the current motion on the floor to add that language, Madam Clerk, if you can capture that. If you can just repeat that language,
Yeah, and
Commissioner
it's just
White.
resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby creates the following position, and depending on the resolution, you could insert that language. And then I would assume, Mr. Parliamentarian, we could include in that same resolution, resolved that upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the following person be named and is hereby assigned to that position at this salary.
Absolutely.
Friendly amendment, perhaps? That this be applied directly to, that this language be applied directly to 511, 515, 517?
Yep. Yes. 511, 515, and 517. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second? Seconded by Commissioner Campos. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, so that language will be added to 511, 515, and 517. We're back to the original resolutions of 511 through 549. Commissioner Williams, you still have the floor.
Yes, on 519, there's,
It was pulled.
519 is pulled.
okay.
Yep. 518, 519 were pulled. Anything else?
That's it.
Commissioner White.
Yeah, very briefly, and Mr. Superintendent, you gave me a very quick answer. As I'm looking at this, I look at a number of these resolutions, one-person salaries, $114,000, $84,000, $87,000. I'm sure you would not have offered these up as resolutions without thinking about, okay, the governor's proposing to cut all this money from our budget. I'm wondering what your thought process is as you add positions and you add people to the payroll. Briefly.
Very briefly, we've been very cognizant of that fact. In fact, we're looking at 130 current vacancies that we're going to be closing. These are positions that we feel are critical to doing the work. A quick example, special education, we now have the highest classification rate in New York State. We are steps away often from being sued. Going back to consent decree, we work on this on a regular basis, talking to the folks who are the advocates in the community for special education children. This is something we felt we have to do to really bring our system into alignment. Same thing with positive behavior systems and suspensions and student discipline. Our teachers beg for support in terms of having ways of dealing with children who have issues. So these positions we thought were critical. The last one, the Office of School Innovation, Ms. Doyley's been by herself creating new schools in the district. We knew, and last year we talked about perhaps as we look to downsize central office, some positions are critical, some things we have to increase. Last year, for instance, almost 2 years ago for that matter, as we downsized the district, we increased our school safety force because that was a strategic area for us. So as we look to reconstitute schools, create new schools, close schools, the Office of School Innovation becomes more and more of a critical component making it happen.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions on 511 through 549? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of 511 through 549, please say aye.
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 Any opposed on 511 through 549?
Aye, with the exception of 511, 515, and 517.
Madam Clerk, have you captured those? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolutions 583 through 587. 583 through 587, these are still human capital initiatives. I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Commissioner Powell. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Cruz. Questions or discussions on 583 through 587?
Bear with me one moment. For all of these acting positions, what happens? At what point do they become permanent, or when you do decide to make these permanent positions, do you have to come back before the board again?
I believe the answer is yes. Anyone from HCI, Human Capital, anyone representing Dr. Hancock tonight? If we go from acting to permanent, does it come back for the board? The answer is yes. And Commissioner, just to be clear as well, we use the word acting often because we know that we may have a layoff situation, and folks who are acting don't always have the permanent spot, and they understand that as they're coming in. And if we do have a layoff situation in a particular title, folks who have permanent positions tend to have first rights to those positions. So it's something that we use very often to make sure that we have the funding, the permanent funding, before we make someone permanent, or perhaps to fill a position quickly. But we often as well put them as acting to see how well people do before we give them a permanent position, but it always comes back for the board.
Anything else on 583 through 587?
Just on 585, and I'm just going through, I will let it. There is no person that's named in 585?
Jacob Rohan. It's on the list.
You're looking at an old packet.
It's in the yellow packet.
Mr. President, the 584 and 585 are the direct result of Marlene Blocker being advanced, and the school-based planning team has to weigh in on any candidates for permanent selection of the principal, so it's part of the reason that you're going to see acting instead of permanent.
Yes.
I mean, there's a whole process of engagement that has to happen.
Yes, and I do a final interview before we submit the person for permanent placement.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams, anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Commissioner, even when they are permanent, they also go to probationary period before they're tenured, so, and they come back to you again when they reach achieve tenure.
Anything else on 583 through 587 from anyone? All those in favor of 583 through 587, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. We now have Resolution 550. 550 is a procurement and supply resolution. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 550.
So moved.
Discussion on Resolution 550.
Do we have a second?
Second? Second by Commissioner Campos. Discussion on Resolution 550. Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 550, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Resolutions 551 through 555 are educational facilities resolutions. I'll entertain a motion to, these all have gone to the Finance Committee. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 551 through 555.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Powell. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Discussion or questions on 551 through 555?
On 555, given the amount involved, why wasn't it bid out as opposed to an RFP?
RFP versus bid out. Someone here to answer that question, Madam? Mr.
I'm sorry,
Superintendent?
555 is an RFP. It's only a request to do an RFP.
Yeah, that's my question.
That-
Why wasn't it bid out as opposed to an RFP?
That's
Jerome?
how
Sorry. Commissioner, did you want to?
Mr. Underwood?
That is how you do an RFP for an architect.
Mr. Underwood?
The process, as I'm understanding it, is an RFP that needed to be done.
Well, let me restate it. Why wasn't it just a competitive bid as opposed to?
I don't have a better answer for you than that, Commissioner Williams, in terms of when this was done, in terms of when I assumed the responsibility. So I do not have a better answer for that, other than I knew it was an RFP as opposed to a bid. So I'm not aware.
Chuck?
Under 103 of the General Municipal Law, when you're purchasing service commodities, things or services which are not deemed to be professional services, you do a competitive bid. Where something's deemed to be a professional service, such as engineering services, architectural services, legal services, medical services, something that involves an expert, you don't go to lowest bid because lowest price isn't always the determining factor when you're looking at a professional service. So the normal process would be an RFP.
Okay.
Okay. Just let me pause for a second. Mr. Superintendent, I'm sorry. We should have recognized some of the people that were.
I think they walked out.
They may have already left. But if you just want to call their names anyway, and then we'll get back to 551 through 555.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second. Let me just go back and find the right page. Forgive me. 583. Is Brian Cadilli here? I think they left already. I think we lost quite a few of them. Rohan Morian, Jacob Rohan. I guess in absentia, congratulations for new principal of 23, assistant principal. We have quite a few folks. What about Kathy Garcia? Is Kathy here? Garcia? No? Okay, I think we lost them all.
Congratulations to those folks.
Yes.
Mr. President, is there a way, I mean, because that really is actually very special, is there a way to have them, I know we've approved their appointments already, but is there a way to have them, invite them back? Because it really is a unique opportunity.
Yeah, we'll have them invited back to the next meeting.
Dr. Dice, can we capture that?
And I'll remember to pause after the last set of resolutions to keep going. I'm just worried about the snow outside. So we are still on 551 through 555. Commissioner Williams, you still have the floor.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner White, anything on 551 through 555?
No, sir.
Commissioner Campos? Commissioner Powell?
I just want to note that of the change orders and these final payments, the net result is a decrease overall. There is a significant decrease in change order on 552. So this is essentially how we keep our capital improvement plan on budget. Is sometimes the contracts have a net negative change order.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz, anything?
Without exception.
Thank you. All those in favor of 551 through 555, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, 551, no. 553, no. 554, no. All the others, yes.
Madam Clerk, have you captured those?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution number 556.
I'm still alive.
I'm sorry, student rep, your advisory vote? I should have asked you for your advisory vote. Your advisory vote on those educational facilities resolutions?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be sure to ask you first next time. I apologize. I thought you had gone home to go do your homework or something. Those college applications. Resolution number 556. Good. Resolution number 556. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 556.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner White, seconded by Vice President Campos. Discussion on resolution 556. Any questions, comments, or concerns on 556?
Yes, there is.
Commissioner Williams?
Good evening.
Good evening. Just want to understand why it is that even though the E-rate subsidy piece went down, why do we have to pay ICS Telecom that additional $19,000 or $19,000 or so?
I'm sorry?
Here's how I view this thing.
Okay.
The original bid came in at $2.9 million.
Yes.
Okay? They then, whatever happened, the actual work that was done was reduced to $2.8 million.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
Say 2.8 million.
Yes, 2.8.
So at that point, the way I look at it, we pay them $2.8 million and they go away. At that point, we then submit the paperwork for the E-rate. And whatever E-rate reimbursement we get, that's ours. If it's higher or lower, then if it's lower than what we anticipated, we eat the difference. We eat it. So why is it that they're involved, even though, in this case, the E-rate reimbursement was less than we had either budgeted for or anticipated, that we then have to pay them that additional amount?
Well, it's my understanding that it was part of the contract, and although the original budget for this project was 2.9 million and change, and the subsidy was projected, because at that time we were at 88% E-rate, E-rate, it was projected at 1.9 million, but so the net RCSD cost was $996,034. The project cost ended up coming in at $2.8 million and some change, which was less than the budget by $36,000.
Okay.
But it was actually the project was $56,641 less. We ended up paying, because of the decline in the E-rate percentage, we ended up actually having to reimburse, or actually having to pay $19,749 that we didn't expect to pay, because we were expecting that we would get that reimbursement from E-rate, but we did not get it because the E-rate percentage declined.
Okay, and that's where it starts to get pretty cloudy, because if their bid to us is 2.8 or 2.9, they do the work, we cut them the check, and they're on their merry way. We then turn around to submit the paperwork for the E-rate. And that has, in my mind, it should have nothing to do with ICS at that point. I mean, they're out of the picture.
Well, I know under normal, this was, I think, the first time that we ever had a project. I mean, I'd have to verify that, but I'm pretty sure this was the first time where we had a project where we actually only paid. Usually, we are the ones that are getting the reimbursement from E-rate.
Right.
But with this project, ICS Telecom agreed that they would not charge us the full amount. They would charge us. They would, calculate what they would be getting from the E-rate reimbursement, and so we would only have to pay the difference up front. So that saved us, because we didn't have to come up with $3 million. We only had to come up with just shy of $1 million. So I believe that was the first time that we were able to do that, because with most projects, that isn't the case. With most projects, we have to do our projections. We have a schedule that we have to follow, where we have to turn in our projections to E-rate and say, this is what we project, and then once the project completes, then we have to get the reimbursement from E-rate. So we have to come up with the upfront costs ourselves. This was different. So this was actually a benefit to us, because we only had to come up with a third of the cost.
Okay, Commissioner Powell.
Yeah, just to restate maybe a little differently than Marion, the contract amount is not variable. We owe ICS the same amount regardless of what our reimbursement rate was.
Right.
The only issue at stake here, the contract doesn't say, ICS, you do the work for whatever we're reimbursable for. No, the contract was for a fixed dollar amount, but ICS was willing to only charge us the difference between the value of the work and what we were reimbursed or we're E-rateable for. So the $19,749 is actually the difference between what was E-rateable and what goes directly to ICS and the value of the work done. That's essentially what we're paying for, and we paid nothing up front to ICS, is what Marion is saying.
That's right, correct. We only paid the $996,000, upon completion of the project. And the project was completed in October of 2009.
Well, it'll be $996 plus $19,000.
Yes, it will, but I'm saying what we already have paid. That's why we are coming to the board to approve this additional amount that we did not get reimbursed from E-rate.
So in other words, the contract was done with an expected reimbursement rate.
Yes.
And ICS applied for the reimbursement
That's
for
right.
us, so we wouldn't have to come up with the money up front.
Correct.
But the reimbursement from the federal government was actually smaller, slightly smaller than
Correct.
what was projected.
That's
which
correct.
is why we have, but the contract remains the same amount of money, it hasn't changed.
That's correct.
But
Commissioner Williams.
yeah. If my memory serves me correctly, there's another firm in Boston or somewhere that we contract out to do our E-rate paperwork, correct? All right.
Not in this case.
It's just part of the original contract. They would do the work and submit the E-rate paperwork.
No.
That's not the same as contracting it out and have somebody else do it.
No, there's a firm that we pay a fair amount of, and I'll go back and look at the...
We do use a firm to assist us. We work closely with them, and I apologize. The name is not coming to me because I'm new to this. To this role.
Mr. Underwood. Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Warner had this project, yeah.
Okay.
Got it. CELT is
If I may, just to explain to perhaps folks in the audience, Anne Mary just took over director of the department. Jerome had it right before that, so this is why we have all these folks go back.
Commissioner Williams, the company you're referring to is CELT, who is our E-rate consultant.
Okay.
When the project was applied for, it was applied for E-rate at a reimbursement rate 1 percentage point higher than what it actually was funded at. Ergo, what the federal government approved, because this project took a while to materialize. When we applied, it was an 88% reimbursement rate. That's what we applied for. What actually got approved was an 87%. In other words, the contract amount, let's just say it was $3 million. That did not change. How that is paid from the federal government, from the RCSD, that is what changed. They were going to give reimburse 1 percentage point less than was originally applied for. So ICS still had to get paid. That additional money has to come from us. Incidentally, the amount was $58,000. And because this started happening a couple months ago, and we reduced and cut back on ordering stuff to reduce the amount down to the eventual $19,000.
If I may add to that, members of the board may recall back in, I believe it was March or April of 2008, when I came to the district, this project was already being talked about, and there were, I guess, contracts being drawn up with ICS. Actually, we slowed down because we weren't comfortable with it. We actually stopped.
And members of the board received letters from ICS complaining about the fact that this was happening. We explained we wanted to look at leadership in IM&T, making sure that we were set up properly to make this happen. This is why the delay making this happen, probably the rate change in the process. But the bottom line is that this has been long part of our planning. So it's not a matter of us not doing this or them not doing this properly. We just had the delay in implementing the project.
I hope we aren't doing this anymore. I mean, we should just get a straight bid number, because it's...
We did, Commissioner.
Yeah.
We did have a straight bid number.
Well...
Yeah. No, the contract amount didn't change, Commissioner.
Exactly. I think
changed
what
was
yes.
the federal government's, our rate of reimbursement is what changed, because
Right.
the project was out there for so long before we executed it.
So I think
against it.
what's not being understood clearly is that there was an assumption made, or based on the, at the time, current reimbursement rate, the contract was drawn with that particular percentage that was being given by the federal government. By the time we executed, that changed.
Reimbursement.
Okay, it just, I mean, to me, it comes across as being pretty shady. It's kind of like, well, no, because it says, well, look, instead of charging you $2.9 million, I'll charge you $3 million or $3.9 million.
No, that didn't change.
All
right, I don't-
Okay,
no.
that's,
Can I just-
you know, it's just, I mean, it's really...
We're going to call the question right now, and on top of that, we do have a study session, and we had it on Tuesday.
Well,
And this would have been a perfect opportunity, at least to start the dialogue.
Well,
as
yeah,
opposed to
fine, but I still
insinuating
have,
that there's some
I
cloudiness.
still have the opportunity, I still should have the opportunity to ask questions, regardless of whether it's in the study session or in an open meeting.
At least
Sorry.
submit the questions ahead of time to get this process going, as opposed to just being here and then having all of these questions, so that we can at least start the conversation. So I understand, you absolutely have the right to ask questions.
Thank you.
At least start earlier, so that we can make sure that it's productive.
I find it productive. Thank you. Is there, I'm sorry, you were saying something, Jerome?
No, that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Scanlon, were you?
No.
Call the
All right.
question.
Call the question, Mr. President.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor of calling the questions, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All those in favor of resolution number 556, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, student rep. I'm sorry.
Move your clo-
You will be first.
We should change seats.
Yeah,
Sarah.
you have to draw you closer to me, student rep. I apologize.
Sorry
You
to
can't.
upset me.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we
I
can do
understand. I understand.
You can. You want to sit right here?
all kids count. Okay. Next, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 557.
Second.
Discussion on resolutions 557 through 582, with the exception of 567, which the superintendent has pulled. Any questions or discussions on those resolutions? Student rep, you have a question?
Yeah. Just real quick. Wait, what was the numbers through? 557 through what?
582.
Oh, I'm sorry. And before I do that, may I have a motion to extend past 8:30?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's extended. Thank you. Student rep,
What is it? 557 through what?
582.
Okay. Just with the 561, I don't know whose resolution that is, but I'd like just an overview of that program, of what it is, like.
Junior achievement?
Yeah, I'd like details on it, like to read about it. I don't need it right now.
No, okay, we can get you some. We don't need it
I'm
now.
trying to move on.
Yeah.
To bring the night to a close.
Right. Do they do junior achievement at your school?
We do Hillside.
No, junior achievement. You don't do junior achievement?
That's why I want to know about it.
Yeah, we have a teacher about that. It's a great
Jennifer, if
program.
you just send me a blurb, I'll give it to Sarah. Thank you.
It's a great
okay.
program.
We'll send it to you, Sarah. We'll put it in.
Also, Resolution 566, I'm just curious, is this person going to be presenting in the Finance Committee meeting? Kevin?
No.
56 is the one we just finished, and we did talk about it in Finance Committee this past.
If he wasn't going to come to any committee, it'd probably be the Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. This is our lobbyists in Albany.
Okay.
566, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's our lobbyist in Albany. If he was going to present anywhere, it would be Community and Intergovernmental Relations.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay. Anyone else have anything on 557 through 582? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of 557 through 582, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
I, 562, I abstain.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay. And I abstain from all, yes to all except 558. I'm affiliated with M&T Bank Corporation.
And my vote is
And your vote is, student rep?
yes, except 568. I have to abstain as well. Two of the individuals work in my building.
They live in your building?
No, they work in the building.
Oh, you don't have to abstain from that, but if you want to, that's fine. Okay. Last resolution is 588, which is a policy committee resolution. I'm going to Commissioner Cruz in a second, but before we do that, Commissioner Powell, if you can announce the gift that we have received.
This should be a rotating honor because
You do it.
it's too good to just hold it to one person. Starts at resolution 571, yes. We have a $5,000 grant from the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors for calculators for the International Finance Career High School at Franklin. We have a $576 gift from Interstate Studio and Publishing to be put in a trust fund for students at school number 50. We have a $1,000 donation from the American Dairy Association for a Get Fit Walking Club at Wilson High School. We have a $1,000 donation for, again, from the American Dairy Association for the Get Fit program at Freddie Thomas. $500 donation to support Kindergarten Steps, a program at Nathaniel Rochester School 25, and a $10,000 grant from Nazareth College for instructional supplies, and part of a collaborative agreement with Martin Luther King School number 9. $1,500 gift from the Deborah Ofterheide family for school number 9, and another National Dairy Council $1,000 gift for the Fuel Up and to Play program at School of the Arts. Gifts for the pencil program and pencil partnerships, and $500 gift for the mural project at Wilson High School. And another $700 gift for the same mural project from the Jeff Miller family.
Thank you.
Did I get everything?
Thank you. Those are all the gifts. I take time to do that because I think people sometimes forget we actually do have a lot of people that donate to this district. Also, I want to bring attention to something that we've been talking about doing for a long time. Resolution number 582. Resolved that the board hereby authorizes the naming of the athletic field at Franklin High School campus after the late Mr. Trent James Jackson Sr., a graduate of Benjamin Franklin High School, retired city school district teacher and coach, an inductee of the Section 5 Track and Field Football and Basketball Hall of Fame as a player, coach, and collegiate, All-American and Olympian, effective the 28th day of January in the year 2010. Madam Clerk, if we can just make sure that we get a copy of this resolution, maybe put on some nice paper in a frame and sent to Mr. Jackson's family. Anyone that's been around this community for a long time knows that Trent Jackson was a heck of a coach, a heck of an athlete, and actually went, I believe, to the Olympics. So it is very fitting, a very fitting tribute that we named that field after him, and I thank my colleagues for their support on that. So if we can just give a hand.
And
Superintendent.
if I may, Mr. President, also want to say that I have been working with Assemblyman Gant in terms of having a ceremony and a bust of Mr. Trent Jackson be put on the field at the high school. It is something we are working on. Once the funding is secured, there'll be an official ceremony at the school at Franklin to actually dedicate the field to Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Resolution 588 came to you in a memo, and it came through the policy committee. As you know, we need to be in compliance with the homeless student policy, and I'm going to yield the floor to Commissioner Cruz to talk us through it.
Yeah, very briefly. I think you got the information ahead of time, so hopefully you had a chance to read it. In the policy committee, we had a discussion about this. Our concern was there were two concerns. Number one, that this is a matter of urgency before the board. I know it's out of the kind of procedural realm we normally use to entertain a policy, but we thought that this was important enough for us to sort of look at a different track for it. If the staff wants to respond, if I'm getting this correctly, there are two issues. Number one, we've been cited for not having this policy, and the second thing, and just as important, is that we're potentially losing grant funding potential and possibilities here, which I thought would not be something that we'd also like to entertain. And so I think given those two issues and the urgency of this matter, we wanted to bring it before the board for discussion and hopefully propose that it be passed this evening.
So we would need to suspend the rules for that, Commissioner Powell.
Motion to waive the policy on policy adoption?
There's a motion to waive the policy on policy adoption. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? I'll just say that having been involved with, for a while, I chaired Catholic Family Centers Homeless and Housing Committee. This is something in this community, and I'm going to Washington, D.C. this weekend, a serious issue in terms of homelessness, and you'd be surprised how many homeless children that we end up with in this district. I heard about one just last week, which was pretty heartbreaking. So this is a matter of urgency, and I'm glad that we do have a policy that will allow us to get grant funding and take advantage of this funding that could come to the district to help this very needy population. Any other discussion on the policy? Of suspending of the rules? All those in favor of suspending of the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Discussion, motion to approve the policy for purposes of discussion. May I have a motion on resolution number 588 related to policy 5110?
So moved, and I would say that one of the reasons I support waiving the policy, adoption policy, is this particular policy is mostly about meeting the legal requirements and communicating to the broader population and our placement office and other departments in the district what those legal requirements are. I was somewhat dismayed to learn that there are people in placement and elsewhere in the district that did not know how to handle a homeless situation. And this puts it very much in a more visible place for all to see. Unlike many of our policies, it doesn't really require, at this stage, tailoring it to meet in a philosophy of the board. I think should that come about and we want to add to this policy and see a need for that, we can do that. But this, as it's presented to us, simply fulfills a legal need, not only for compliance, but also to make sure that people know, that the public knows what's available to them and the district knows what they have an obligation to deliver.
It's been moved to the second. Second by Commissioner Cruz. Any other discussion on the policy before you related to homeless?
Don't we have a program, a homeless program in place? We service homeless students already, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Any other questions or discussion around that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the policy before you, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you. We have concluded our speakers. I will announce our next meeting, which will be February 25th, 2010 at 6:30. We also will be having a study session coming up shortly, and I would urge all my colleagues to also attend all of the Black History Month events that will be taking place. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Van.